Hola chicos, bienvenidos a Español con Hawani. Tengo una pregunta. If you wanted to say in Spanish, when I have more free time, I will study Spanish more, would you say A? Cuando tengo más tiempo libre, estudiaré más español? Or would you say B? Cuando yo tenga más tiempo libre, estudiaré más español. ¿Cuál es la respuesta? La respuesta es B. But do you know why the answer would be B? If not, don't worry, we're going to go through when to use the subjunctive with cuando or other similar words to that effect, or when to use the present indicative tense instead. Because it's something that can confuse quite a lot of Spanish students. I know for myself personally, it used to confuse me quite a lot before. But once you actually understand it a lot more, you'll actually see it's quite easy to figure out when to use cuando with the subjunctive or when to use cuando with the present or the present indicative tense. Alright, let's get into it. Vamos. So now, when do you use cuando with the present or the present indicative tense? So we use that when we talk about things that happen in general, or when we're expressing things that happen habitually, or things that are basically part of our habits and routines. Por ejemplo, if I wanted to say to you, when I go to New Zealand, I eat a lot of food, okay, I would say, cuando voy a Nueva Zelanda, como mucha comida. So, cuando voy a Nueva Zelanda, como mucha comida. So you can see in this specific example, because I'm from New Zealand, so I go to New Zealand a lot, so I'm expressing something that's basically a part of my routine, something that's repeated, a repeated action that's happened many times. So in this case, we use cuando with the present tense. All right, let's go for another example. When I do exercises in the gym, I have more energy. Cuando hago ejercicios en el gimnasio, tengo más energía. So, cuando hago ejercicios en el gimnasio, tengo más energía. So again, we're talking about something that's part of my routine. Okay, again, it's a recurring action, something that happens in general. So this causes us to use cuando with the present tense again. So I think you're starting to get an idea of it, but let's go through a few more examples. When I visit my mum, she cooks too much food. So, cuando visito a mi madre, ella cocina demasiada comida. Cuando visito a mi madre, ella cocina demasiada comida. So again, you can see something that happens in general. So again, cuando plus the present tense. Let's try one more example. But this time, let's use an example with cuando in the middle of the sentence. Por ejemplo, we always visit Italy when we go to Europe. Siempre visitamos Italia cuando vamos a Europa. So, siempre visitamos Italia cuando vamos a Europa. So again, you can see we're doing something that happens habitually, something that's happened before. We're talking about things in general. So again, we're using the present indicative after cuando. Cool, so I think that's starting to make sense, but now the question is, when do we use cuando or other similar words with the subjunctive? So we use the subjunctive when we're talking about future events that may potentially not happen, or future events that may not happen, or we may not know when exactly they'll occur. Por ejemplo. Now, if you'd never been to New Zealand before, and I said to you, when you go to New Zealand, you have to try the food, okay, I'd say, cuando vayas a Nueva Zelanda, tendrás que probar la comida. So, cuando vayas a Nueva Zelanda, tendrás que probar la comida. So, why do you think we'd use a subjunctive in this particular phrase? The reason is because there's that air of uncertainty. So you haven't got anything booked, you've never been to New Zealand before, it's not certain whether you'll actually go to New Zealand in the future. And again, we're talking about a future event, so that triggers the subjunctive. Let's try another example. When you have a child, you'll understand my point of view. Cuando tengas un hijo, entenderás mi punto de vista. So, cuando tengas un hijo, entenderás mi punto de vista. So in this particular example, we're talking to you as if you don't have children. So we're talking about something that's a future event. It's also uncertain because there's a possibility that you might not have a child in the future. So that's what triggers the subjunctive. So, all right, let's try another one. You will speak clearer when you go to Spain. Hablarás más claro cuando vayas a España. So, hablarás más claro cuando vayas a España. So again, you can see here a future event, okay, when you go to Spain. It's not certain whether you will go to Spain, therefore we use a subjunctive. Awesome, so we've used so far cuando with the subjunctive, but also with another verb in the future tense. Another really useful way to use cuando with the subjunctive is to also use it with the imperative. So remember, the imperative tense in Spanish is like giving commands. Por ejemplo, if you wanted to say, when you arrive at the party, call me, okay, you'd say, cuando llegues a la fiesta, llámame. So, cuando llegues a la fiesta, llámame. Now, after those examples, you should have a clearer idea now about when to use the subjunctive and when to use the present indicative. But to finish off with, let's go a few exercises just to make sure everything is making sense. So I'm going to give you some sentences. I want you to not only translate them for me into Spanish, but I also want you to figure out when to use the subjunctive and then also when to use the present tense. All right, número uno. Translate this for me. When I have the money, I will buy a bigger house. So when I have the money, I will buy a bigger house. So in this example, you'd say, cuando tenga el dinero, compraré una casa más grande. Cuando tenga el dinero, compraré una casa más grande. So you can see in this specific example, okay, when I have the money, again, we're talking about a future event, okay? It's uncertain whether we'll ever have the money, so therefore we have to use the subjunctive. So cuando tenga el dinero. Número dos, when I go to New Zealand, I eat a lot of sweets or lollies. So when I go to New Zealand, I eat a lot of sweets or lollies. This time you'd say, cuando voy a Nueva Zelanda, como muchos dulces. So, cuando voy a Nueva Zelanda, como muchos dulces. So you can see in this example, we're talking about something that's habitual. We're talking about a thing that happens regularly, okay, recurring action. Número tres, when I went to Spain, I brought a lot of presents. This time, cuando fui a España, compré muchos regalos. So, cuando fui a España, compré muchos regalos. So in this case, okay, we're talking about the past tense. So this one was a little bit of a tricky one. So we're talking about the past tense. We're talking about a specific action that did happen in the past. Okay, so we're using the past tense and we're using the preterite past tense in this scenario. All right, last one. When I am older, I will be a lawyer. So when I am older, I will be a lawyer. So to finish off with, cuando sea mayor, seré abogado. So cuando sea mayor, seré abogado. So you can see in this sense, when I am older, again, we're talking about a future event that may not occur. So again, we use a subjunctive. Awesome. So how did you go with those questions, and did you get all of them right? Hopefully you did, and if you did, great work, but keep practicing, especially in your next conversations that you have in Spanish. Apart from that though, if you got any value from this video, please consider liking the video, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. But apart from that, I will see you in the next one. Hasta pronto.